Hi all, and warm welcome to our first focus session hosted by Accenture. I'm very happy that you've decided to join our session, How to Turn Data into Value When Time Waits for No One, among the very long list of interesting topics that will be covered through the conference today. So my name is Fia Bengtsson. I will take you through the next 25 minutes where we will get to know more about the Digital Project of the Year 2020, crowned by the CIO Awards. This offering, produced and scaled in only a few months' time in collaboration between Telia and Accenture, helped battle COVID-19 and is a true example how we can really turn data into value. And with me here today to tell the story, I have Elin Allison, Head of New Product Strategy for Data Insights, Telia Division X. Welcome to you, Elin.
Thank you so much, Fia, and I'm sorry about the very, very long title that I have managed to get to.
I almost got it right.
Really?
Yes. But I will directly hand over to you, and you can tell us your story.
Great, thank you so much, Fia. And so happy to be here today. And I'm going to dive straight into it, how we turn data into value during the beginning of the pandemic about a year ago. So, computers can only give you answers. This is a quote from Pablo Picasso from 1964. And this is really true, right? Technology is only a means to an end. So basically, if you don't know the question, data can give you so many answers, but you might end up answering problems and questions that nobody actually has. Like this digital pistachio ordering button, where you can sit in the comfort of your own sofa and you can order pistachios to your sofa. Great, what a day to be alive. But really, this product doesn't exist because there isn't really a need to digitally order pistachios to your sofa. And the same comes to when developing data products, that you need to have a problem. What is the problem that you're solving? What is the need? How much is it worth to solve it? What is the value? And how easy is it to solve? What is the ROI? And at Telia, we have loads of movement data. We have oceans of it. We have rivers of it. It comes all the time, every second. And here, for example, is what Telia Crowd Insights can show us. We have here a picture of people commuting into Stockholm during rush hour in the morning. All these red circles represent people, and the bigger circle is more people, and the less size of a circle means a smaller number of people. All the red dots are moving in towards the city, and the blue ones are moving out towards the city. Really good value if you work, for example, in public transport. But for me, maybe I would like to see this every now and again. It's cool, but it's no business value for me as such. But you can use movement data for a lot of other verticals as well. What we see here is a dashboard towards a municipality. And here, for example, you can look at, if you're an urban planner and you look at how to develop your city, you can look at movement patterns to know how to develop your city depending on their citizens' need. And how does it really work then? Telia Crowd Insights. Well, we have the cellular masts, and we have all the devices in people's pockets pinging these masts. And we know at any point in time how many pings we have at each mast. But of course, this data is anonymized and aggregated before we analyze it. And already here you can see that if we have fewer than 5 connected to a mast, that data is removed completely. And I think that's the main pillar of Telia Crowd Insights. It is the anonymization process. And that's actually what took the longest to develop as well. So here we have privacy by design, which means that it's anonymized and it's aggregated, so it's grouped. And it's also irreversible. So basically, no individual can be found in the data set that we're analyzing. And we want to make sure at Telia that we really take privacy seriously. And we have developed these ethical principles in all AI and ML development that we're doing. And unfortunately, I don't have time to go through them all today, but it's all about kind of demystifying AI and machine learning and be more transparent towards our customers. And these principles, they are online on our website. And if you work for a big company and you don't have these kind of principles yet, go in, steal with pride. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. But then let's move back. About a year ago, the pandemic hit. And we had countries closing down, we had public transport emptied, and we had this data. We had this data that we knew could be of use for the authorities, but we weren't really sure how. And we had no resources to spare. All of our analysts were tied into commercial deliveries. So what we did is that we picked up the phone and we called our friends at Accenture. And we asked them, would you like to help to see what Crowd Insights could do to fight the battle against COVID-19? And they did. They said yes. So what then happened, Accenture had worked with us before with Crowd Insights, so they knew already the data set, they were very familiar with the data set, so we could get right into business. And straight away we could see there was an enormous difference in travel. Here you can see nationally in Sweden, more than 20% less people were traveling in the mid-March comparing to before the pandemic in the beginning of March. And we took those insights, and together we contacted the public health agency, the Folkhälsomyndigheten, with these insights, and we said, can we help? Of course, there was lots and lots of companies then approaching Folkhälsomyndigheten and wanting to help. But what made them actually look at our data was that they had a real problem. So they had no idea whether the public were adhering to their recommendations. They had this, which is a lot of media reports. They had press and individual experiences around what was happening in society. Here you see an article about people being in open restaurants and crowding, although the Prime Minister have told us that we're not allowed to. And they had no way of measuring whether this was true or not. So they saw potential in our data, but they also had some really non-negotiable requirements regarding privacy. And of course, Crowd Insights was already a commercially available product, and we had really done this right, and it was documented, so this didn't become a hurdle in our negotiations. We could go into straight collaboration very quickly. And then what followed was this really massive sprint. We had analysts from Accenture, we had business owners like myself from Telia, and we had the people at Folkhälsomyndigheten working together in looking at the data, creating dashboards, iterating, interpreting what this data could do to help them realize how people were adhering to recommendations. And this, of course, was super productive. We learned a lot, and I think they learned a lot as well. For example, a dashboard that we looked at was activity. So here, the activity tells us where people are spending time. And this is the city of Gothenburg, where you can see that the red circles, they mean a decrease in people spending time, and the blue circles mean an increase. So what we can see from this picture is that people are spending time in the suburbs a lot more than before the pandemic, probably working from home, and this is a great way of being able to quantifying it. And we also had this dude. So Mr. Anders Tegnell, the Swedish state lead epidemiologist, what a difficult word that is, by the way, talking about our data in a way of saying it was objective. And for us working with data, this is really a proof for us that we're doing something right. So this was a really stake in the ground that we were doing something right, and we were able to push even harder. And we also had media, lots of interest from media, and not only in Sweden, but in our other countries as well, where we operate, in the rest of the Nordic countries. And here it was mainly about, travel analysis. You have Easter holiday, for example. How did people travel if you compare to the year before? And here we really worked hard with Accenture as well to figure out how do you show something so complex in a really simple manner. And here we see an example for an Easter analysis where we look at trips to Gotland. And we compare to 2019, and you can see here that it's nearly 90% less people traveling to Gotland in 2020. But if you are, we also ended up with visualizations from Accenture on TV, for example, and there it is, you have a few seconds to show the story. It has to be so simple. And how do you simplify something that's actually quite complex? You can ask my friend Petter a bit later here about what the font size is and what you need to be on TV. It's massive. Anyway, back then to our team and what happened internally at Telia, because this is now my May timeframe, and our Accenture friends had to move on to other things. And I've put a swan on the picture here because you can see the swan. She's very graceful. It's all calm and quiet on the surface. But underneath the surface, she's kicking to try to get somewhere. And that was exactly how we were feeling in the team at this time. We were working super hard because we also had to scale up in such a short space of time. But it felt right, and it felt really good to help. And what we found was that we needed to build reusable components. We needed to standardize. And here you see what came out of this. We are now creating standard dashboards that we can reuse all across the Nordic countries. And these standard dashboards is also what Folkhälsomyndigheten are using today. And in this project then, let me just reiterate if we actually answered these questions. So was there a problem to solve? I would say yes, absolutely. The adherence to recommendations, a very important problem to solve. And was it worth solving? Well, absolutely, because it wasn't only the public health agencies that were interested in this. It was the regions and the municipalities and also commercial actors that were interested in the results of this. How easy is it to solve? Well, it's always easy if you have the manpower to do it. And I guess because of the partnership with Accenture in this case, we really could focus and do this in a super short space of time. And if I summarize then, there's so much potential in data, but you need to make sure that you do privacy right and that it is a focus area if you work with a sensitive data set. And always standardize, build reusable components, and also, of course, reach out to your partners. You're rarely stronger when you're on your own. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Elin, for that really interesting presentation. And do please come and join us here in the chairs. Thank you. Great. So first, you mentioned privacy many times, but I just want to ask you again. I guess people might be concerned. Can Telia track their movements?
No. So we cannot. There's no individuals in the data set. What we actually do is that we use the subscribers as the ground data, but then we extrapolate. So we count up for the service to represent the Swedish population or the Norwegian population or the country that we're in. So there's no individuals in the data sets, and we cannot track individuals. And it's not even the purpose of the service, because we want to see the bigger movements in society.
Yeah, I think that's really reassuring if people were worried. But then, as you said, also, it's not only Telia devices that you're showing in the statistics. It's actually...
No, so the ground data is the Telia subscribers, but then we extrapolate, so the service represents the 100% of the population.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And here in the studio, we also have Petter, who is our head of applied intelligence in Accenture, Sweden. But what brings you here, Petter?
Thanks for having me. I was a part of this engagement from Accenture side. We had a small team, and the idea was that Emma Myresten from our team was supposed to be here today, but she had a baby 3 weeks ago. She couldn't make it, and I'm her substitute.
And we're very happy to have you here, Petter, as well.
Thank you.
But can you then tell us about the Accenture journey related to the Crowd Insight platform?
Yeah, it's been a super interesting journey. And I'm super happy to have been part of it. We have, during this fairly long journey, we've used so many different parts of Accenture and our skill sets. Initially, maybe more focus on the strategy, and then general business development and innovation agendas that we helped with. And later on, when we kind of came into more concrete mode, we were in prototyping and working with actual delivering and communicating insights.
Okay, yeah, so it's been a part of throughout the journey a little bit more, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But there's also been a lot of analytics involved in this,
Yes.
I presume. Can
Yes.
you deep dive a bit into that?
Yeah, definitely. So it's all about data and analytics. So it's been also here, we've been using different parts of our analytics team. There's been a fair amount of big data, as Elin mentioned. The amount of data here is massive, and it's coming in every day. The big data part and the data engineering part has been important. There's also this data science component that is important and very central in the smartness and the kind of the brain of this. As we saw here in Elin's presentation, there's a fair amount of data visualization and making sense of the data and communicating the data.
And then if we fast forward up into March last year and COVID-19 hit, so how did Accenture react to the requests coming from Telia?
We're in, well, I guess was our short answer.
We loved it.
Yeah, that was we were super happy to get back in and bring the band together again. We kind of quickly, as Elin mentioned, we knew the data and we knew the environments. So we were really quick in getting started, and basically in a day or two, we started to deliver our first insights. It's been that project was super agile and always working with the most recent data we could get, and also really trying to minimize any delay in delivering the insights, because people were always interested in knowing the most recent trends or changes.
So being used to agile delivery is one thing, but this was almost a step further.
Yeah. Almost.
So Elin, this was not usual business for Telia either at that point. So how would you say that you've changed your delivery?
Oh, it's been a massive change all over last year. Before the pandemic, we were delivering monthly deliveries to customers that we had partly a manual QA before we did the delivery. And whereas now we have dashboards updated daily with fresh data, so all the QA had to be automated. And I mean, there is a lot of the standardization that you touched about is not only about, not getting this circle of death in your dashboard, trying to load lots of data. It's also about how do you aggregate the data in the back end to make sure that you only bring the data that you need to the dashboard. There's so much more than just what you see. So there was a lot of data engineering work in the back end. There was a lot of tables and again, really switching to the standardized kind of mindsets and always building components that you could reuse. Before the pandemic, we had different structures in the different countries, which made dashboards, you couldn't transfer a dashboard to, I'm looking at you because you know this, you couldn't transfer a dashboard from one country to the other. You had to build it again. And all these things, we had to sort them out because it wasn't scalable and it didn't go as fast as this project required. And COVID in itself, all the increased interest and the demand that we just had to move even faster. So yeah, agile doesn't really cut it. No.
But you succeeded very well, right? So great work.
We did, absolutely. We're super happy with the way that we have been working and still, of course, are. You're never done in these kind of projects. But it was a lot of things that we now feel much more ready in terms of the scalability of our service.
Great. Petter, and what would you say have been the main analytical challenges you faced during this project?
I think there's plenty of them. And I think this data is super interesting in so many ways, but also challenging to work with. We, as Elin presented here with the base station and the maps, there's an amount of uncertainty of positioning and the kind of the spatial accuracy that you need to be really aware of. In some regions, we have 2G antennas that are spanning really big areas. Whereas in city centers and so on, these antennas cover much smaller areas, and you need to consider that when analyzing the data. And it's a bit tricky, I would say. I think there's you need to also consider population. A number, if it's a couple of hundred people in one area, it may be interesting or may not be interesting depending on other patterns such as population density or work density and workplace density. So it becomes quite complex. I think working with this data has also kind of enlightened all of us of our kind of ability to, we are kind of periodic, and we have this really deep patterns of we go to work, we go home. There's a really interesting analysis around this, around that, trying to understand basically trends over time and how things develop.
Okay, yeah, cool. What would you say have been your main takeaways from this project?
You need to have a big font size on TV, as Elin said, really big. No, but I think my main takeaway is that this has been a bit different from the projects I've been working at before. It's been really about great to good from day one. We've been driven by more of a strong purpose than just making money. We and Telia saw that this data could be used for making cities smarter and making public transportation smarter. And now, with the pandemic also being of help to trying to understand how the restrictions played out and how people have adhered to the recommendations.
Thank you, Petter. And we've also received some questions from you in the chat window. So addressing this to Elin, who is controlling that company anonymized data correctly?
So of course, I mean, the law that we're under is GDPR, that we know. I mean, that's the privacy law that we're all adhering to. So that would be definitely the authority that's controlling whether this is anonymized as well. We have gone a little bit a step further, and we've had lots of, hackers to try and re-identify and stuff like that without any success. So I stand tall when I talk about privacy and Telia Crowd Insights.
And how many years do you keep the data that you're gathering?
So the unanonymized data, we don't keep at all. So the anonymized data we have from all of 2019 in most of our countries, we have the anonymized data so we can compare, which of course in this project was also vital for Folkhälsomyndigheten. In the beginning we could compare to before the pandemic, but then if you look at Easter, for example, it carries no relevance. You have to compare to a normal year, and then we had all of 2019 there, so that was a real a good success factor as well.
Okay, that's really good answers. But do you want to take out some of your main takeaways from this project?
Well, I think it was definitely the fact that Accenture jumped on so quickly. We made this a pro bono initiative from the beginning, and with Folkhälsomyndigheten as well, and I think that actually helped us be so quick. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to get where we got to so quickly. And it's not about them not being willing to pay for the insights, but it was just to get started and see very quickly what this product could do for them. So the challenge, I guess, from Telia's perspective was then, afterwards when we didn't have help from Accenture and we didn't have any internal funding to keep on going, it was hard with the priorities in terms of our commercial deliveries and this delivery. And of course, it was also very nice to be able to help society and that sort of thing. But that posed to be a challenge for us internally, but we persevered. I guess we worked really hard.
That's great. And looking forward, what would be the next use case for the Crowd Insights?
Yes, so we have already standardized services towards cities that I showed a quick dashboard on, and we're just launching Crowd Insights for retail now, where it's also, of course, very relevant to see how people movement affects the retail vertical. And then just around the corner, we also have standard offerings towards transport. So there's lots of things that we're doing. We're being busy bees.
Yes, good. But with that, actually, it's time for us to wrap up this session. We could have easily kept going for a long time, I think. And if you have any further questions, you can address this in our session discussion room right after this. Both Elin and Petter will join you in the room. So you just click on the little session discussion room button at the right or screen or where we're streaming. And with that, I really want to say a big thank you to Elin and Petter for joining us here today, and a lot of thank you to everyone listening in and posting questions, and keep on in the session room discussion afterwards. I also want to do a shout out for our next focus session that starts in only 5 minutes, where we will talk about the collaboration we're doing together with Sara Kulturhus, where we're creating an inclusive navigational app to use in the Culture House. So thank you and goodbye.